An explanation of what happens to food the second time heat moves through it. Because it is not the same event. Not even close. The molecules sitting in that container in your refrigerator right now are not the same molecules you put in there last night. They changed while they sat. And when you put heat back into them, you are starting a chain of reactions that the first cooking never triggered. 5 foods. 5 things almost everyone reheats without a second thought. And each one of them, warmed up the wrong way, produces compounds that are formally classified by international health agencies as either known or probable carcinogens. Now let me stop you right here before you close this and go on with your evening. I am not telling you to throw anything away. I am not telling you leftovers are dangerous. Leftovers are fine. Leftovers are economical, and they are practical. The difference between a safe reheat and a risky one almost always comes down to 3 things: the temperature on the dial, the method you choose, and about 2 minutes of your time. And if you're already thinking this is going to be one of those throw out your microwave videos, stay with me for 60 seconds because the actual science says the exact opposite. Your microwave is about to become the most important appliance in this conversation. I'll explain exactly why at the end. I'm an internal medicine physician with over 2 decades of clinical practice. And the questions my patients ask me most often aren't about their prescriptions. They're about their kitchens, what they're cooking, how they're storing it, and whether the thing they reheated for dinner last night is quietly working against them. So today, 5 foods. One of them is the healthiest vegetable in your crisper drawer. One of them is a grain that's being reheated in every second household tonight. One is sitting in a bottle next to your stove, and you don't even think of it as a food. One is the single most reheated protein on the planet. And the 5th one is something parents warm up for their children almost every single morning of the week. And what happens in your kitchen between 6 and 7 at night has more influence on how you age than nearly anything a doctor can write on a prescription pad. That is exactly the kind of question I get from my patients every single day. So I took everything I tell people in my own clinic and built it into one straightforward guide for living longer, stronger, and healthier. What actually changes inside your body as you get older? Your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your joints, your memory, your energy, all of it. Thousands of people are already using it to take back their health, and it's helped so many of them feel better than they have in years. The link is on your screen right now, so go check it out. And I'll drop that same link down in the description below so it's right there whenever you're ready. Now, one idea before the list because once you understand it, you can figure out the risk for any food in your refrigerator, even the ones I don't name today. When you cook something the first time, heat is doing exactly what you want. It's breaking down tough fibers. It's unfolding proteins so your body can digest them. It's releasing locked nutrients. It's killing bacteria. That's cooking. That's the whole point. And it works beautifully. Then the food cools. And while it sits in that container overnight, it transforms. The proteins have already been unfolded. The starches recrystallize into a tighter formation. The fats have already been partially broken open. And bacterial spores that survived the first cooking wake up and start to multiply. So when you put that food back on the heat is landing on material that has already been structurally altered once. Different starting material, different chemical outcomes. And that second heat does 3 things the first heat never did. 1, it creates. It builds compounds that did not exist in the food when you cooked it, and did not exist in it when you stored it. Brand new molecules formed only during the reheat. 2, it compounds. The first cooking started the molecular damage. The second cooking goes to work on what's already been broken open. So the reactions run fast and go further with every pass. 3, it can undo. Heat kills bacteria. Heat does not destroy the toxins that some bacteria leave behind. So a reheat can look perfectly fine, smell perfectly fine, taste perfectly fine, while the actual danger is sitting right there on the plate untouched. Creates, compounds, can undo. Every one of the 5 foods today gets measured against those 3. And every single one has a fix that costs you nothing. I want you to hear that part clearly because it's the whole purpose of this video. Nobody here is being told to throw away food. Telling someone who is watching their budget to toss a perfectly good meal is insulting. And I won't do it. The lever you actually control is the method. How hot, how long it sat, how many times, and what's in the pan. That's it. Number 1. Spinach. And with it, the entire dark leafy green family. Kale, chard, arugula, beet greens, mustard greens. The good part first because it's true and it matters. Fresh spinach, whether raw or cooked and eaten right away, is one of the best things you can put into your body. Iron, folate, vitamin K, lutein for your eyes. Leafy greens are one of the genuine reasons a plant-heavy diet lowers blood pressure. I want you eating them. That has not changed. Now the chemistry. Leafy greens absorb nitrate from the soil and concentrate it in the leaf. Nitrate by itself is harmless. In many ways it's beneficial. It's the same compound found in beetroot juice that your blood vessels convert into nitric oxide, which relaxes and widens them. What changes it is time and temperature. Bacteria naturally present on the leaf convert nitrate into nitrite, which is a far more reactive molecule. And they do that fastest in the temperature window between roughly 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So a pan of cooked spinach sitting on the countertop for 2 hours while it cools, or a spinach quiche left out after dinner, is quietly accumulating nitrite the entire time it sits there. Then you reheat it. In the presence of heat and protein, nitrite combines with amines from that protein and forms nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are among the most extensively studied chemical carcinogens in existence. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is the cancer research arm of the World Health Organization, classified ingested nitrate and nitrite under conditions that result in this internal conversion as Group 2A, probably carcinogenic to humans. That classification was made in 2010. The cancers with the strongest and most consistent evidence behind them are in the digestive tract, stomach, esophagus, colon. Spinach is a creates food. That compound was never in the leaf when it grew. You built it in your kitchen with time and heat. And I want to be honest about the scale of this because I have no interest in frightening you. One reheated spinach dish is not a diagnosis. This is a small exposure repeated across years and decades, which happens to be exactly how most diet-linked cancer risk actually accumulates. The fix is free. Cook the amount of greens you are going to eat in that sitting. If you have leftovers, get them into the refrigerator within 1 hour. Then eat them cold. Cold spinach folded into a salad the next day is completely fine. It keeps every bit of nutrition and it skips the second heat entirely. What makes this a problem is the warm hour on the counter followed by the second trip through the pan. Number 2. Rice. And this one has put people in the hospital. That is not a sentence I use casually. Uncooked rice naturally carries the spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. A spore is a survival form of a bacterium. Think of it as a seed inside a hard shell. And that shell is specifically engineered by evolution to survive one thing: heat. So when you boil a pot of rice, you kill virtually every other organism in there, and the spores sail through the boil completely unharmed. Now the rice comes off the heat and sits on the counter. As it drops into that warm zone, the spores germinate. They wake up. They multiply. And as they multiply, they release a toxin called cerulide. Cerulide is where this becomes genuinely serious, because cerulide is heat stable. You can bring that rice back to a full rolling boil the next day, kill every living bacterium in the pot, and the cerulide will be sitting there completely intact, untouched, waiting. This is well enough documented that it has an actual nickname in emergency medicine: fried rice syndrome. The textbook case is takeout rice left on the counter overnight, and then fried up the following morning. Score it. Rice is the can't undo food. Reheating gives you the feeling of having sterilized it. It did no such thing. In a healthy adult in their 30s or 40s, the result is a miserable few hours of vomiting and nausea. After 60, with a thinner gut lining, with less resilient immune defenses, and for many of you, medications like proton pump inhibitors or acid reducers that lower your stomach's own first line of defense, that same dose of toxin can mean a trip to the emergency room for dehydration. And repeated low-grade inflammation of the gut lining over years is a risk factor clinicians take seriously for colorectal disease. There is a second, quieter problem with rice that nobody talks about. When cooked rice cools, the starch recrystallizes into a tighter formation. This is called retrogradation. If you then throw that cold rice into a screaming hot, dry wok or skillet, you are browning it. And browning starch at high, dry heat is the exact reaction pathway that produces acrylamide. IRC classifies acrylamide as a Group 2A probable human carcinogen as well, and the FDA has published formal guidance to the food industry on reducing it. The fix comes directly from a UK National Health Service guidance, which is the clearest any public health body has written it. Get the rice into the refrigerator within 1 hour of cooking. Spread it out in a shallow container so it cools fast instead of sitting warm in the center of a deep pot. Eat it within 24 hours. Reheat it until it is steaming hot the entire way through, not just warm on top. And reheat it once. One time. There is no third night for rice. Number 3. Potatoes. And I bring these up specifically because this is the food parents reheat for their children more than almost any other. Mashed potatoes from last night. Roasted potatoes tossed back in the oven. Hash browns made from yesterday's boiled potatoes fried up for breakfast. The first issue is the same bacterial one as rice. Cooked potatoes left at room temperature are one of the most common vehicles for Clostridium botulinum and for Bacillus cereus growth. The starch content is high. The moisture content is high. The surface area, especially in mashed potatoes, is enormous. It is a perfect bacterial nursery. And if those potatoes sat out on the counter in foil or in a covered pot for 2 or 3 hours while the kitchen got cleaned up, the spores that survived cooking have been multiplying the entire time. But the bigger issue with potatoes is acrylamide, and this is where creates comes in hard. When a potato that has already been cooked is reheated at high, dry heat, especially when it's fried or roasted until golden, the sugars, and the amino acid asparagine in the potato react with each other in what's called the Maillard reaction. And that reaction, at high temperatures and low moisture, is the primary pathway for acrylamide formation. The European Food Safety Authority issued a formal risk assessment on acrylamide in food in 2015 and identified fried and roasted potato products as one of the single largest dietary sources of acrylamide in the Western diet. And here's the part that matters for reheating specifically. A potato that's already been cooked and cooled has undergone starch retrogradation. Its surface is drier. Its sugars are more concentrated and more available. When you throw that potato back into a hot pan or a hot oven, the browning happens faster, and it goes further than it would have on a fresh potato. You are creating more acrylamide on the reheat than you did on the original cook. The fix: reheat potatoes gently. Low heat with moisture. A microwave works beautifully here. If you're reheating mashed potatoes, stir in a splash of milk or broth and use medium-low heat on the stove with a lid. If you're reheating roasted potatoes, the microwave covered with a damp paper towel is far better than throwing them back in a 400-degree oven. And get them into the refrigerator within an hour of the original cooking. Do not leave potatoes sitting on the counter in a pot or wrapped in foil. That is one of the most common food safety mistakes in the average kitchen. Quick pause because we're right about in the middle. This is the only thing I'll ask you. If this kind of explanation is more useful to you than a list of 10 foods with no reasoning behind it, hit subscribe. And do me one better. Send this to whoever does the cooking in your household because that is the person who can actually change what happens at the stove tonight. Number 4. Cooking oil. The bottle sitting next to your burner, and everything you've already cooked in it. Vegetable oils high in polyunsaturated fat, so sunflower oil, corn oil, soybean oil, and most of what's sold as generic vegetable oil, are chemically fragile at high temperatures. The fat molecules in these oils carry double bonds, and those double bonds are the structural weak points. Push them past their smoke point, and they fracture. And when they fracture, they release a family of compounds called aldehydes. You already know one aldehyde by name: formaldehyde. IRC classifies formaldehyde as Group 1, carcinogenic to humans. That is the top classification, the same tier that holds tobacco smoke and asbestos. Another aldehyde that appears in overheated cooking oil is acrolein, which is the compound that gives burnt oil that sharp, harsh smell that catches the back of your throat and makes your eyes water. IRC moved acrolein into the Group 2A probable human carcinogen category in 2021. Here is where reheating enters the picture. Researchers at the University of the Basque Country in Spain have published some of the most detailed work on this in the journal Food Chemistry. And what they found is that heating the same oil a second time produces significantly more of these toxic aldehyde compounds than the first heating did. The first heating already damages the molecular structure of the oil. The second heating goes to work on oil that is already partially degraded, so it breaks down faster and further. That is the compound's pathway, and this is the single clearest example of it in your entire kitchen. And this is not only about a jar of saved deep frying oil sitting under the sink. When you take last night's stir fry or that pan of sautéed vegetables and throw it back into a hot skillet, the oil that is already inside and around that food goes through the entire degradation cycle again. You do not have to be saving oil to be reheating oil. 3 fixes, all free. First, stop reusing frying oil. If you have a jar of it stored somewhere in your kitchen, pour it out tonight. Second, when you warm any cooked dish on the stove, use low or medium heat, never high. Every single reaction I've described today is driven by temperature. Lower the temperature, and the chemistry largely does not happen. Third, for stovetop cooking and reheating, switch to extra virgin olive oil. It is predominantly monounsaturated, meaning far fewer of those fragile double bonds. It carries its own built-in antioxidants, and it holds up to heat considerably better than seed oils do. That is the reverse of what most people have been told, but it's what the research consistently shows. Number 5. Chicken. And with it, every cooked animal protein: beef, pork, fish, turkey, even hard-boiled eggs. This is the one I think about most because of one simple fact. It is the most reheated food on earth. You roast a chicken on Sunday, and you are eating it Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday. It is also the only one of the 5 that hits all 3 damage pathways at the same time. Start with creates. When you cook meat at high temperature, the amino acids and the creatine naturally present inside the muscle tissue react with each other and form heterocyclic amines, which researchers shorten to HCAs. They form on the surface, in the browned and charred areas, and they form more aggressively the hotter and drier the cooking method. The National Cancer Institute maintains a public fact sheet on exactly this relationship. HCAs are mutagenic, meaning they directly damage DNA in laboratory testing. They produce tumors in animal models. And population studies have linked high intake of well-done, pan-fried, and grilled meat with cancers of the colon, the pancreas, and the prostate. So think about what reheating in a hot pan is actually doing. That surface already went through the browning reaction once during the original cooking. You put it back on high heat, and you are browning a surface that has already been browned. You are running the HCA reaction a second time over the same piece of meat. Then compounds. The proteins in that chicken were already denatured and unfolded by the first cooking. Hit them again with intense dry heat, and they oxidize further. Dry high heat is also the primary driver of advanced glycation end products, which researchers abbreviate as AGEs. There is a landmark food database on AGEs published by researchers at Mount Sinai in New York. And the central finding is this: the cooking method mattered more than the food itself. The same piece of chicken broiled or fried carried many times the AG load of that same chicken poached or steamed. AGEs drive oxidative stress and chronic inflammation, and they appear consistently in the research on cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, and diabetic complications. And then can undo. Cooked chicken is one of the easiest foods in your refrigerator for bacteria to recolonize once it cools. Staphylococcus aureus, which lives on human skin and gets onto food from your hands during handling, produces an enterotoxin that is heat stable. Same principle as the rice. You reheat that chicken to 165 degrees. You kill every living bacterium, and the toxin is still sitting on the plate, completely unaffected. So here is how you reheat chicken. And this might be the single most practical sentence in this entire video. Low heat, a pan on medium-low, a splash of water or broth in the bottom, and a lid on top. You are steaming it. Moist heat kept below the browning threshold. The HCA reaction never fires. The AGEs don't form. The oil inside the meat doesn't degrade. And here's the part that surprises people. The food actually comes out better.